Hi guys, it's Kara from Plaid, and we are here today with our Paint Night Live edition with Michael's Community Classroom, and we are painting Summer Starfish with Jessie, our amazing instructor. So she will be leading you in this painting step by step, and I will be here answering any comment or any questions that you have. So make sure that you are commenting and questioning in the chat room, and I'm going to try to answer them for you either by typing back, or we can actually ask Jessie live, or if I have the answer, we can definitely relay all the information to you guys. Also, we are doing a fun giveaway. So if you comment in the chat during this live and you stay through the end, we are going to announce a winner live, and you're going to win $50 worth of Plaid product. So we are just gonna give everybody a minute to get in and get settled. We hope that you are painting along with us, or you are just watching to relax and get inspired. If you love this, we have done a number of these Let's Paint Live classes with Michaels, so you can watch this video after and all our previous videos on michaels.com, so you want to check that out. Also, you can get all your supplies on michaels.com or in store, and they've got some great options. You can have it delivered, curbside pickup. I know my store has same-day delivery still, which is an amazing option. So you want to go ahead and get your product at Michaels, of course. And again, you could watch this video again on replay if you were just watching to get inspired, or if you're painting along and you want to go back and rewind. All our past videos are there. Also check out our Let's Paint Facebook group, because we have a lot of other great content using Michael's products there. So if you love this painting, Jessie and Andy and our other instructors have a ton of education on there. So again, we're painting Summer Starfish, and Jessie's going to walk you through this painting. Comment, question in the chat, we'll try to answer. And again, you will be entered to win $50 worth of Plaid product, and we are going to announce the winner live. So I think everybody's, getting in. So we will get started, and let us know how our speed's going. If you're painting along, we want to make, sure it's successful for everybody. So try to stay at a good pace for everybody. So take it away, Jessie.
Okay, cool. So like Kira said, my name is Jessie, and I'm going to be teaching you Summer Starfish tonight. So I'm going to let you guys know slowly while everybody's coming in what supplies you're going to need. So hopefully you've already checked out the event listing, so you've got all of your supplies prepared if you're planning on painting along, but we'll just refresh just in case you forgot anything. So what I've got here, I've got my 12 by 12 canvas, and I have just a stretched canvas here from Michaels, but you can use a wood panel, whatever you've got, as long as it's square, that'll work for this painting. I've got my palette paper, which is just paper that's wax coated, and so I can mix my paints on it easily, and then I tear it away and throw it away. But if you've got a regular palette at home, or aluminum foil, paper plate, whatever you've got at home to put your paint on is totally fine. And then I've got my paper towels. I have a 3/4 inch brush, or 1 inch brush is fine for this. Either way is fine, just like a medium-sized flat brush. And then I've got my 1/2 inch flat brush. So just any smaller flat brush you've got. Those are the only 2 brushes we need for this painting tonight. And then I've got my water basin to clean my brushes in. And then tonight we are using our FolkArt acrylic paints, and we are using navy blue, silver Marlin, French blue, Daybreak, Conch shell, crushed coral, wicker white, and then we are also using tonight our FolkArt floating medium. And floating medium is a product that allows, if you're really familiar with painting or a decorative painting, you can use it to float paint. So you can use it for lots of shading and making strokes and things like that. But what we're going to be using it tonight is to keep our paint very wet, because what we're going to be doing is painting on our canvas wet on wet. So we want our whole canvas, unlike usual where we like the layers beneath to dry, we want our whole painting to stay wet as we go, and this floating medium is going to help us do that.
So Jessie, somebody has a question. If they don't have floating medium, can they use an alternative?
Yeah, if you don't have floating medium, if you have like an extender at home, if you're like a painter and you've got that sort of thing, that would work perfectly too. If not, if you're sort of a beginner and you just sort of have the basics, you can use water. It's going to be a little trickier to blend your paints on your canvas. It's not going to work really as well as if you have the floating medium, but you can definitely still paint along and have fun for sure. So just use a generous amount of water as you're painting.
Yeah, so everybody, don't worry if you don't have the medium, you can absolutely use water. So when Jessie says use medium, just add some water to your paint. It's going to turn out fine.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And also, if you don't have all of these specific colors at home, you can get all of these colors at Michael's, of course. But just make sure that you have 3 different blues, 2 different pink colors, a white, and a yellow. So it doesn't have to be exact ones, but as long as you have something similar to these colors, you can make this painting and it'll still be beautiful.
Okay. And then there is no template this week.
Nope, we're going to hand draw the starfish this week.
Okay, so no template.
Right.
And let's see what else. Pouring medium is not the same. So pouring medium does something else to your paint. It actually, I would not paint with the pouring medium. So
what we're looking for tonight is a lot of blending and texture. So floating medium almost thickens your paint. It keeps it really wet for a long time, whereas pouring medium will thin your paint so that it flows on your canvas when you're pouring. So you don't want to use pouring medium. That might even make it dry out faster. So I wouldn't try that.
Yeah, and if you don't have the exact colors, something close, again, you can personalize this. And, you know, right now it's kind of use what you've got. We totally understand. So if you don't have French blue and you have light blue or baby blue or any colors really go. So it's totally fine. I would just substitute.
Right now, so.
Yeah, so if you're like, my light blue is always going to be my French blue when Jessie's teaching, that's totally fine.
Yeah, totally. Cool. I saw a question too pop up. I can see the questions this time a little bit.
Oh, good. Usually you can't see them.
Yeah, usually you have the big screen up. I can see a couple at a time. Does it have to be square? So you can absolutely use a rectangle canvas. The only thing is I'm going to be showing you how to draw the starfish on a square. So in relation to a square canvas is how I'm going to teach you how to draw the starfish. So you may need to change your starfish a little bit and just use your own artistic skills a little to get your starfish shape. But of course, you can do it on a rectangular canvas. That's no problem at all. You could do a round canvas if you wanted to. Anything's fine.
Yeah, 9 by 9. So Jessie's using a 12 by 12, but a 10 by 10, a 9 by 9. She's using a square, but like she said,
a little 10 by 10 mini guy earlier.
Yep, a rectangular canvas would work. You could just position your starfish like in the top corner, maybe. Yeah. So totally fine.
Absolutely. Okay, cool.
All right.
Ready to get started, Kira?
Yeah, let's get started. We'll keep answering questions.
Okay, cool. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to put a little bit of crushed coral, which is just my coral color. Any sort of like darker pink you have is fine if you don't have this at home. I'm going to put about a nickel-sized amount of that onto my palette. And the first thing we're going to do is we are going to start drawing our starfish shape. We're going to draw it with our paintbrush. So if you're at home and you would prefer to use a pencil, if you feel more comfortable drawing with a pencil, feel free to use a pencil instead. I don't usually use a pencil when I'm sketching. If you watch our Let's Paint Lives, you know that we don't usually bring a pencil into it. We usually just sketch with our paintbrush. But if you have a pencil at home and you feel better about using that, by all means use your pencil. So I'm going to grab my smaller flat brush, which I have the 1/2-inch flat brush. You can see sort of in relation to my hand about the size of that. Whatever you've got that's close is fine. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of paint, just a tiny bit. Hopefully you can see I just have paint on the very tip of my brush, hardly any. And we're going to start drawing our starfish. So we're going to look towards the top. We're going to mark, you can see on our finished one, I think you guys can see that. You can see where it sort of goes off of the canvas there. So we're going to mark that. We're going to say maybe 3 fingers from the end. I'm going to make a little mark with my brush on the edge. You guys see that? So 3 fingers in, we're going to make a mark.
Crushed coral, correct?
Yes, this is crushed coral. Really, we're just drawing out the shape, so any color will work. This is just going to be the easiest to cover up because our starfish is going to be coral, of course. So we're using crushed coral. Any color you've got is fine for this part. And I've just made a mark 3 fingers from the top left of my canvas. So just about, we're just sort of guesstimating. And then I've made that mark. I'm going to go 3 fingers to the right of that, and I'm going to make another mark. So I know now where my starfish is going to go off of my canvas. So now we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna use our hand so we don't have to break out a ruler or anything like that. We are gonna go a full hand down from the top left. I'm gonna make a mark there. You see how I did that? So that's my full hand. Of course, everybody's hands are different size, but it'll be close enough, and it'll be all in relation to your own hand, so it'll still make sense regardless. So we've done that, and then I'm gonna do 3 fingers again down from that. So right now we should have these 4 marks. I'm gonna make them just a little longer so you guys can see them at home. And that's gonna tell us where our starfish's little legs are going to be going off the canvas. And again, we're using crushed coral, but it doesn't matter for this because we're just sketching out the way, the layout of our starfish. So on the bottom, I'm gonna put my hand on the bottom left here. And you can see I sort of have my palm resting on the edge. And I'm gonna make a mark there. And we're gonna make a little C shape there because you can see our starfish doesn't go off the canvas here. It sort of ends right there. So we're just gonna use it to make a little half circle, a little moon shape, a little wide C, and that's gonna be sort of a foot of our starfish. So you can see what I did there, and I just marked it. It's about a hand width into the canvas. And then on this side, we're gonna go about, we're changing it up a little. From the corner of my canvas, we're gonna go about 3 fingers, and I'm gonna mark it there. And that's where our other, you can kind of see what we're laying out here. That's where our other little leg is going to reach. And then at the top right, I'm gonna do 3 fingers from the top, and I'm gonna mark it there. And that's sort of gonna be where the other arm of our starfish goes. And we're gonna make that one a little C shape too, just right where our mark is, because he's not gonna go off the edge either. And it'll make this guy a little C shape. So hopefully you can see, compared to the final one, we've got the tip of each of our starfish's legs, and then we've got the 2 that are jutting off of the canvas. So this is where I said it might be a little tricky if you're doing a rectangular canvas, but really now that I'm thinking about it, if you have a rectangle, only 2 are going off the corner, and so these guys wouldn't be going off the corner anyway, so yours might just have a little more blue space around it, which is totally fine. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to connect these lines in order to make a star. So the way we're gonna do that is you just kind of have to watch sort of where my hand is going. I just have a little bit of paint on my brush, just enough so I can make a very dry line, just enough so I can see it, so I can paint the colors in later. We're gonna connect these 2 in a swooping motion. Can you guys see that? It's just sort of like a round L shape, a round backwards L. And we're gonna do the same thing down here. We're gonna connect these 2 in a rounded, it's like a boomerang shape almost. We're just connecting those lines. I'm gonna fill mine in a little more. It got a little dry at the end. And do the same thing here. There are kind of boomerang shapes. So we're gonna go up and connect these 2. You can add a little bit of water to your brush if you feel like it's getting a little bit dry. And then we're gonna connect these 2. And again, we're just connecting them using a boomerang shape. So you know that, like soft L sort of shape. And then we're gonna do the exact same thing, and we're gonna connect these 2. And you can see just how easy that was to draw this starfish shape. Hopefully it was simple for you guys. I can refresh if people need a reminder of where we placed our marks. You think we need a refresher, Kira?
No, I think someone just asked what color, so we are using the crushed coral.
Yep.
Crushed coral to draw the starfish. I was just putting it in the chat.
Okay, cool. All right, awesome. So once you got that drawn, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna clean off my brush. I'm gonna clean off that crushed coral from my 1/2-inch brush.
Yep, and I think just give people a minute to finish drawing their starfish since we're freehanding it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Jessie just completed the starfish, and if you guys are just joining, don't forget to comment if you have questions, and you'll be entered also to win $50 worth of plaid product. And somebody asked if our lines aren't right, we'll paint over them. Absolutely. That's what's so great about paint.
My lines are not perfect. I'll try to hold it up to the camera a little better. Can you see mine are kind of wonky and they're definitely not straight. This is just so we know the shape of it. We're going to add so much paint on top of this. You can see all the different layers and all the different textures and colors we put on there. So don't stress about that at all. We just want to have an idea of where the starfish is.
Yeah, and if you did draw it with pencil because you were more comfortable, you can just go ahead and paint right over with that crushed coral right over your pencil.
Yeah, and honestly, you can leave the pencil line because we're going to fill it all in a minute with another pink color.
This one's very forgiving. I love this one.
Yeah, this one's a little simple as far as drawing goes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think we're ready to start filling in.
Yeah, let's start again.
Okay. So all we're going to do right now is we're just going to sort of base coat it. So this, a lot of people call this like an underpainting or something. We're just going to start filling in our color, just flat color that we can add all of the pretty blended colors on top of. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab some Conch shell, which is my lighter pink color. And again, this is FolkArt acrylic. And I'm going to put about a quarter-sized amount of that onto my palette. And all we're going to do right now is we are going to paint in our starfish. We're just going to fill it in. We're going to go right up to the line, whether we painted the line or whether we did pencil for our line. We are just putting down a flat coat of conch shell onto our starfish.
Great, and that'll give everybody, you know, just a second to catch up also.
Totally, I'll go nice and slow so you guys have a second to catch up and then you guys can base coat your starfish.
I know, I think we're always worried that people are gonna get bored of just watching you paint, so we like to speed it up and talk.
I know.
Yeah, but this is so great. Like, thank you guys all for tuning in. Thank you, Michaels, for having us. This is such a great partnership, and we are honored to be able to teach with the community classroom online. And thank you guys for taking time out of your busy days. And I hope this brings some relaxation and a way to unwind. This is a great thing to do as a family right now. Great for all ages, right? You know, if you're able to connect with your friends on Zoom also, this is a great way, like do it, you know, a virtual party for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Painting is such a great way to connect with people, but it's also a really great way to just spend some time with yourself. You can just sort of turn your brain off and relax and be creative. It's definitely what I do.
Yes.
So again, we're just filling in the starfish that we drew. And I have my 3/4 inch flat brush, so whatever medium-sized flat brush you have. And I am using Conch shell, which is the lighter of my 2 pink colors. And all we're doing is just putting a nice, even coat of conch shell onto our starfish. And the reason you can see that we have all these textures here and all these different colors, and you can see that this is really flat. So what we're doing now is we're just base coating the starfish, so we're covering the canvas in paint. So that way, when we go to make all these pretty brush strokes, we don't have to worry about getting full coverage. We only have to worry about where we're putting the color and making it look good. So once you have it covered, we can see the pink coming from beneath, and that will kind of save us some time later on. Again, we're just base coating using our 3/4 inch flat brush and conch shell. We're just doing a nice even coat. No, you don't need too much paint, just enough to cover the canvas.
Yeah, Jesse, I think this would work great on a rectangle. You know, like you said, you would just have more blue just looking at it now.
Totally, I agree.
You could do it smaller, you could do it larger, because the same thing, right? You just want to make sure you have 2 of the that are starfish arms. You know, we're very technical when we talk about animal parts or plant parts or.
I don't know, really.
Yeah.
The only thing is when you're making your starfish, you of course want to make sure that when it's all said and done, each of the arms are wider at the base and narrower at the point, and you want to make sure they're all about the same length. So that's important too. If you don't know, if you're not doing it like us and you can see exactly in relation to the corners where your starfish is. So if you are doing it in like a rectangle or something and you're kind of eyeballing it, you just want to make sure that those things are true when you're done. It's wider at the base and narrower at the tip, and each of your legs are about the same length, and then you should be good to go. Okay.
I love that people are answering also. Somebody said, I messed up the shape, and somebody said, don't worry, we'll cover it later. Like, I love that everybody is helping each other. That makes me so happy.
Yeah, me too. It's a really, Michael's has a really great community in these classrooms. I love that so much. Awesome. So now I've got my starfish all painted, and I just filled it in a quick base coat with my 3/4 inch flat brush, and I used FolkArt Conch shell. So again, just a really quick, you can even see it's not totally covered in some spaces because I did it really quick, but that's fine because you can see here in the final painting all these colors that are going on top of it. So we just want a nice even coat of paint just to get some color down there. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna clean my brush off. Splash some water. And I'm going to dry my brush really well. My paper towels.
So somebody has a question, if their painting has streaks, what should they do?
So right now, if your painting has streaks, you may have added some water to your brush, but that's okay. We just want to make sure that we get a bunch of pink down right now. So right now, if it's imperfect, if your coat looks imperfect, don't worry about that. Because like I said, we are going to be adding a whole nother layer of this light pink, plus a bunch more colors on top of it, so you won't see any of those streaks. We just want to get like a solid layer of color there. Don't worry about that right now. Definitely don't stress out about it. Okay, so I'm going to grab some Silver Marlin, and I'm going to put about a quarter-size amount of that onto my palette. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to use the same brush, the same 3/4 inch flat brush, or whatever size, medium size flat brush you have. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to paint the background. So we're just going to fill in the Silver Marlin on the background, just like we did for our starfish with the conch shell. We should have a nice even coat of paint.
And Jessie is using the Silver Marlin.
Yep.
Which is a beautiful bluish gray. It is perfect for any ocean painting.
Yeah, so it is a really pretty gray color. Like Kira said, it has a lot of blue in it. So.
Oh, I love this. George said his daughter is 7, wants to know how he came up with all the fancy names for the different folk art colors.
We have a lot of very creative people here at Plaid coming up with these names.
Yeah, George, tell her it is a group effort, and we all do just a ton of trend research, and it is really like a group effort. We vote on them, we send emails asking what they think people think of each color, or even product lines. So it's a really fun process.
Yeah, everybody kind of gets a say. You're right, Kira. Whenever we come out with a new product at Plaid, we always get emails from that product manager saying, I like these names, these are my suggestions, everybody vote on your favorite, and we all kind of get a say. We come up with the best name possible. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I love that that little mind has a question like that.
I know, I love that too. Very creative. So again, I'm just going right up to the pink. I'm going to try to get as close as I can. You can see I'm sort of using the edge of my brush, the chiseled tip of my brush, to get as close as I can to the edge of the pink. Again, doesn't need to be perfect. We're going to be adding a lot of paint on top of it, but just doing my best to get as close as I can. And I'm just doing a nice, even coat of Silver Marlin. Again, we're just using our 3/4 inch flat brush to fill in the background behind our starfish. We're using Silver Marlin. It's a FolkArt paint. But any sort of blue, medium blue or gray you have, if you have like a really bright blue and you don't have this specific color and you sort of wish that you did, you could take like a bright ultramarine blue and just mix a tiny bit of black and a tiny bit of white to it, and you should get a pretty similar color to this. It should definitely be closer than what you've got. So really mix a little bit of gray with blue, essentially.
And Elizabeth, I private messaged her, I hope it worked, but she just said she had a metallic silver and she could add some blue to that. Absolutely. I love the idea of mixing some metallics in there.
Yeah, you can totally do that. That'll sort of, just the fact that, you know, silver is sort of a version of gray, that'll sort of tone that blue down, but it'll also make it kind of shiny. So I'm actually excited to hear how that turns out. Please let us know. Again, this is just a really beautiful, it's almost like a denim-y color. We're just
it's really pretty.
Yeah.
The paints are FolkArt acrylic paints is what we're using. So someone had a question.
Yeah.
And Jessie has used conch shell to fill in her starfish, and she is using silver marlin to paint the background right now.
Yep. And I'm gonna grab some more marlin, I ran out.
Yeah, but I said, you know, if you don't have conch shell, like a light peach, a pink will work. Again, you could dull it down with white if it's really bright, or maybe you want a bright starfish. And the blue.
If you've got red, just add a bunch of white. Do white with a touch of red, and you should get a really similar light pink to this one. That's the great thing about FolkArt paints is that there are so many beautiful colors that you rarely need to mix them. But they are really easy to mix for if you are out of a color or something that you really want to use for a painting. They're so easy to mix, they don't get muddy. And again, we're just filling in the background behind the starfish. I'm just trying to let everybody catch up. I'm going nice and slow. I want to make sure we're all together by the time we've got our starfishes base coated so we can start painting the details all together.
Yeah, and it's fun to scroll through and see who's painting.
Awesome. Let us know if you're painting along tonight. We'd love to hear. I think Kira can too.
Yeah, and hold up your painting after we want to see. And you know, check out our Plaid Let's Paint Facebook group. And, you know, a lot of people have been posting their paintings when they're done, either that night or the next day. So we'd love to see what everybody is making.
I love to go comment on everybody's paintings and see how they did. It's how I know if I did a good job teaching it or not. Everyone's paintings are beautiful. I know that I did an okay job.
You make it super easy.
Thanks, Kira. Okay, awesome. So you can see I've just got my background painted with silver marlin. I just did a quick coat. It's not perfect, just enough to get some color down. And now I'm going to clean off my brush. I'm going to wipe off excess paint so as not to get my brush basin too dirty. Okay. So we are going to be doing some blending on our palette tonight, which if you've been joining us for these Monday night paint nights, is a little something different than what we've been doing. We've done mixing on our palette. I misspoke. We're going to be mixing on our canvas tonight. We usually mix on our palette, so tonight we're changing things up a little. So you can see all these variations of blue in here and these variations of pink, and we are not going to be mixing anything ahead of time. We're going to be doing it all on our canvas, which is why we need that floating medium to keep all of our paint super wet while we're painting so that they can all mix together really beautifully. So you can see what I'm doing here is I'm taking my 1/2-inch flat brush and I want to make sure it's really dry because I use this paintbrush to paint the outline of my starfish, and I want to make sure that it's super dry for the next part. So just take a towel or a paper towel or whatever it is that you've got to dry your brushes and just make sure that brush is as dry as you can get it. And once you've done that, I am going to put some more conch shell, which is the light color we've already used. So you can see now with FolkArt paints, since they're acrylic paints, they dry pretty quickly. So it's already sort of drying on my canvas. So you want to go back and make it really wet so that we can start blending in all of those colors. So we're going to do another coat of conch shell. I'm going to put some more, like I said, on my palette. I'm going to put a generous amount. I have a good size amount, about $1/2 size. And then I'm also going to take some of my floating medium, which hopefully you have this at home because this is really great for keeping paint wet, or if you've got some extender at home, some paint extender, you can use that too. And like we said, if you don't have these at home and you just got water, feel free to try it with that. I don't think it's going to blend as well, but I still think you'll have a pretty good result. So I'm going to put about a nickel-sized amount of this onto my palette. And what floating medium is, it's just sort of like the filler in paint. So there's, of course, the pigments and everything that makes it colorful, and then there's sort of like the part that makes it smooth and creamy. And that's very similar to what is in the floating medium. And so that's what keeps your paint really smooth, and it keeps it wet longer. Okay, so we're going to grab our 1/2-inch flat brush, which is the smaller of our flat brushes, and we are going to condition our brush in the floating medium. So what you do is you just take a little bit of floating medium, and you want to put your brush sort of back and forth and make sure that it gets worked into all the bristles. Can you guys see what I'm doing on my palette? I'm just sort of working my brush back and forth. It's almost like if you're going to condition your hair or something, you want to make sure it all gets in there so that your brush stays really nice and soft and wet. So you can see I've got a good bit of my floating medium in there. You can see it's kind of shiny. And I've just worked it back and forth on my palette to make sure that I've got it really, all the bristles are really conditioned with the floating medium. So the next thing I'm going to do is, now that I've got my brush nice and conditioned, it's going to keep my paint really wet. So now that we're going to condition it for another second.
Yeah, I think people are just getting caught up.
Okay, cool. I'll hang on a second for you guys.
So these comments are amazing, you guys. Like their third class today. Somebody else was asking if we do more painting classes. So we have been live on Mondays at this time. And again, you could go back and watch all the past classes on michaels.com, which is great. They are all there. So if you want to check out some of those. We've got some people that did the bee last week. So we've got some little punny jokes happening in the comments.
We still got those bee puns coming. I can't even believe it.
Yeah, I'm not getting them started tonight. Some people love the bee, and I loved it too.
Anybody got any starfish puns? I'd like to hear those.
No! This is someone's 4th class.
Awesome. Welcome back.
I feel like they should get a reward just for how many classes they've taken today.
I know. That's amazing.
Yeah. So there are more classes on michaels.com. So if you go to the community classroom, all the past classes will be there available to watch on demand.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm just going to do a refresh of where we are, just for those of you who are catching up. So we've got our starfish drawn. We filled in the starfish with FolkArt Conch shell, which is this pink color. We painted the background with Silver Marlin, which is this beautiful gray-blue color. And then we put some floating medium, FolkArt floating medium, onto our palette, and we conditioned our brush. And we just did that by sort of working the floating medium into our brush and the palette. You can see kind of how I'm doing here, making sure it gets really into the bristles and nice and conditioned. And that's where we are right now. So the next step is going to be to pick up some conch shell, which is the light pink that we've been using. And the reason we're going to put some more of this, I'm going to pick up some more floating medium. The reason we're going to do more of this is because we want, so this is already probably dry. Most of mine is dry. It's a little bit wet maybe, but it's mostly dry from when we painted it. And that's because acrylic paints are just dry super quickly. That's sort of the nature of acrylics. So for you using like oil paints or something, if you're sort of an avid painter, using floating medium almost makes your paint feel more like oil paints because they stay really wet for much longer on your palette and on your canvas. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start by practicing these little strokes. So you can see this final starfish painting here is all made up of tiny little strokes, and that's all different colors that make up this full painting. So I'm going to practice here on my palette. I'm going to show you guys how to make these tiny strokes. It's super simple, but it's just sort of practice our hand, sort of get it into the muscle memory for when we make this entire painting with this tiny little brush doing these strokes. So here, I'll show you. We're going to do a stroke. It's going to be about the length of your bristles on your brush. So you can see that's about how long my stroke was. And then do another stroke, 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 stroke. Can you kind of see how you can start going quicker with it? You sort of get a feel for what those strokes feel like. So do some practice. If you've got a napkin or a piece of paper near you, I can practice on my napkin some more. Stroke, 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 stroke. And you just sort of get in the habit of that size and shape of stroke that you're doing, because again, that's what we're going to be using for the rest of our painting. So you just want to take a minute. You can go ahead and practice making your strokes. Again, nothing fancy, just super simple. Just, we want them to be pretty consistent. So that's what you guys are going to be practicing right now.
And we are using, I just put in the chat, the 1/2-inch brush.
Yes, we have a 1/2-inch flat brush right now. And we're going to be using this brush for the rest of our painting. And I should mention right now, make sure you pay attention to when we're putting our brush in water, because we are pretty much not going to be putting our brush in water anymore. The painting is done. So whenever you're
unless you do not have the floating medium.
Correct. Unless you don't have the floating medium. Thanks for correcting me. If you're using water for floating medium, then absolutely keep your brush in the water. But if you have this floating medium at home, you don't want to put it in the water because that's just going to wash it all out. And it's going to sort of counteract the floating medium. It's going to get really runny, and we're going to lose that like beautiful thickness that we're looking for with the floating medium. So make sure that we're going to just be washing our brush on our paper towels. We're not going to be putting it in the water until I say so at the end. So just keep that in mind. For me, it's sort of habit just to stick my brush back in there. And if you do find yourself doing that between colors, just take it out and just dry it off as best you can. Just try to get as much of the moisture out as you can. And I see someone asked if we're going to keep adding floating medium. We are. We're going to keep adding it as we go to make sure we've got a good bit of floating medium in our brush at all times. So again, we just picked up some floating medium. We picked up some FolkArt conch shell. And then we practice all these little strokes that are just about the length of the bristles on our brush. And now we're going to start doing those little strokes all over our starfish. So we're going to make strokes just like this all over our starfish. And the reason we're doing this is because we want to get lots of wet paint onto our starfish. And I'm going to use the floating medium pretty generously. Again, if you're using water, you want to use the water generously. And the good thing about the floating medium is that when you add it to your paint, it doesn't take away from the pigment at all. It keeps it really opaque. It doesn't get transparent. So when you put water into your paint, your water's going to get runny, or your paint's going to get runny, and it is going to be a little more transparent. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're painting. That's just one of the benefits. So the next time you go to Michael's, or the next time you're doing a Michael's curbside pickup, you might want to throw some floating medium in there because it really is handy to have for painting. So again, I'm doing these little strokes that we practiced, and I'm just doing them all over the pink that we already did. So I think you guys can actually see that okay. You can see where the wet paint is. You can see the difference. At least I can see it on the camera here. And we're going to go back over and we're going to add all of this wet paint on top so we can start adding in the extra colors and giving this starfish some dimension.
Yeah, and you are using the same color. So you basically base coated your starfish in the conch shell, and then you're going over with strokes with the conch shell.
Exactly, with the conch shell, and what I'm using is floating medium. And you can see sort of the reason you did that, because we're doing these strokes, so it'll be kind of a pain in the butt to have to go and fill in this entire starfish so carefully using these strokes, because there's going to be spaces between them. It's going to be hard to get up to the edges. So that's why we did that initial base coat of conch shell, to make it much easier, sort of save us a step here, so we can just focus on keeping the paint wet and adding in the extra color without having to make sure we've got full coverage, because that just would be annoying. And I don't like to be annoyed when I'm painting. So again, we're using generous amounts of floating medium, and we're using conch shell, and we're going right back over our dried conch shell. And again, you'll see why once we start adding more colors. You may be thinking, oh, this girl's kind of crazy. Like, we just did conch shell. Why are we doing this again? But I promise you that it'll make sense in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, and that's a great explanation, that if you were just doing these strokes, you would have all this white popping through. So you want to have a base coat.
Can you see? See all the spaces in between those strokes? That would all be white canvas, and that'd be such a pain to have to go back and do strokes in all those areas. So that's why we're doing it this way.
Yeah. And you were just using the 1/2-inch brush. Jessie made me a cheat sheet today, you guys. It is super helpful, so I sound very knowledgeable right now. I was like, I need to know what supplies you're using when you're using them, so I don't have to interrupt you.
Yep, I always type out little notes for myself when I'm teaching a painting, just to make sure that I'm doing it in the correct steps so nobody gets confused and I don't skip anything and have to go back and confuse people. So I gave Kira a nice little copy so she can help me out tonight.
And somebody asked, are you painting in the same direction?
Yes, good question. We are always doing it just like we practice the strokes, always going up to down, up to down. We're pulling down with every stroke, same direction every time. We're not going all over the place. If you were here for the cactus painting, we did the background and we sort of did lots of strokes all over the background. We wanted them to be really random. For this one, they're all just being pulled down. The whole painting is going to be that way. And you can see when I got up to the edges, I just got as close as I can. I kind of like to keep those clean edges. It's up to you. You can see this one here, I did sort of softer edges and I went over the line a little bit. It's sort of up to you. So I just went right up to the edges. And again, we just did our floating medium in our brush with our conch shell, and we are painting these strokes of conch shell right over where we have our dry paint on the starfish.
And we are using Craft Smart brushes, and we are using a 1/2 inch. And I think some people have questions about the supplies. We just did a variety pack. So maybe that's why they weren't listed out the exact sizes, but it's a Craft Smart variety pack needed for this.
I think we did like a flat brush set maybe, Kira, for this one.
Yeah.
I knew we could a couple of flat brushes. So whatever you've got that are flat brushes is totally fine. If you got a filbert brush, like that'll work too. Anything that's close to this is fine. Just you don't really want a round brush for this, but anything else, you can use an angle brush for sure.
And someone's worried they can't see their strokes. That's okay.
Yeah, I can't see mine either. You can kind of see them in the glare there. If you feel like you need to get a good look, if you've got a light near you, you can sort of tilt your canvas and you can see how wet it all is. And that's because we added the floating medium. So I'm gonna just wait a second because it looks like maybe a couple people need to catch up. And again, I'm not going to clean my brush right now. I'm just going to take a dry paper towel and wipe it off the best I can. I'm not going to clean my brush. I'm not going to put it in water. Just going to wipe off my brush. I'm just sort of pinching it between my hands using the paper towel. Just getting as much paint out as I can. Yeah, stay in the lines as best you can. Like I said, if you want to do like softer lines and make it a little more impressionistic, you can feel free to do it just sort of how this painting is here. In the example for the event listing and for mine here, we're doing a little bit more crisp lines. So it's sort of preference for you. If you like to keep it a little more crisp and solid, we can do it this way. Or you can go over the edges a little bit if you want to make it a little softer. And we are using our 1/2 inch flat brush. Any brush about this shape and size will work perfectly for this painting.
Yep, I think some people are just getting caught up. Somebody wants to know what kind of palette we're using. So I don't know if we have Artist Loft.
It's from Michael's. I think it might be Artist Loft. It's just our wax-coated palette paper. So it comes in a pad. It's just like a pad of paper. You can see it sort of peels up there. And it's just wax-coated paper so that your paint doesn't soak through it. It holds the paper really well. It's nice and slippery for mixing on. But yeah, I love this for painting. It's a really good little investment. It lasts a long time because you can usually use it for a couple paintings at a time. You know, this is a big sheet, so I can save this and use the other half for my next painting. And it's a big book, so it's a good investment.
Yep. And not dots. You want to, Jesse, someone's asking, can you show them the stroke again?
Absolutely. So I'm going to put a little more, you can see here on my palette, this is what the strokes look like. So you just pull down, pull down, pull down, pull down, pull down, pull down. And they're going to be about the same length as the bristles on your brush.
And then some people, their starfish is drying out. Is that okay?
So if your starfish is drying out, you need to be using more floating medium if you have it. If you are not using floating medium, then it's okay. Don't worry about it. We'll figure out a way to sort of blend those for you guys at home if you don't have the floating medium. I want to make sure everybody's successful. So, because if you're using water, it's really not going to keep your paint for wet for as long as the floating medium will. But that's okay. Don't worry. Don't stress. We'll make it look good. So I'm going to go ahead and move along so my paint doesn't start drying out. Because again, we want our paint to be staying wet on our canvas. You can see the background is totally dry and then our starfish is still shiny and wet. So I've cleaned off my brush just on my paper towel. I'm going to set it aside for a second. I'm going to grab some Wicker white, which any white will do. And I'm going to put about a nickel-sized amount of this onto my palette paper. And again, I'm going to condition my brush with the floating medium. You can see I've got a little pink in there, and that's okay because we're going to be blending all these colors together. So I'm not worried about that right now. When we switch to blue, we'll need to make sure it's nice and clean, but for now it's not a big deal. So I've got a good bit of floating medium in my brush, and I'm going to pick up some white. So if you guys are painters, if you've done a lot of painting or drawing or anything like that, you have an idea about light sources. So whenever you're doing a painting, we've talked a little bit in our other Let's Paint Live classes. So you just need to pick when you're doing the painting, where is your light coming from? So for this starfish, it's probably not a lamp or something. It's probably the sun. He's probably on the side of a rock somewhere in the ocean. So we are going to say that the light is coming in from the top right. So we're imagining the light is coming in from this way, okay? So what that means is everything facing where my hand is going to have a highlight on it. It's going to be in the light. And everything on the opposite of that is going to be in shadow. So you can see here on our final one, the light source is coming in this way. So we've got our highlight up here because that's in the light, and we've got a highlight here. We've even got some in the middle because that's where the light's hitting it. And then the shadows are all along the bottom here. So it's a really simple way. If you've ever just sort of wondered, like, how do people choose where they put their shadows when they're painting or drawing? That's how you do it. You just need to pick where the light's coming from. And just stay consistent throughout your painting, and then it'll always look great every time. So again, we are still using our 1/2-inch flat brush, which is the smaller of our flat brushes, and we will be using this for the rest of the painting. I did not put it in water. I conditioned it with some floating medium, and then I picked up some FolkArt Wicker White, and we're going to go along the top of our starfish here and add in just a few dabs of white to show the highlight. So here, I'll show you what I'm going to do. We're going to use the exact same motion, all of the little brush strokes we've been practicing. We're going to use that for the rest of the painting. So here, brush stroke, brush stroke, brush stroke. We're going to go all along the edge. We're going to be picking up more floating medium and more paint as we need it. We're going to go all along the top edge of that starfish because, again, that's where the light's hitting it. So that's going to be perfectly in light right there. So I guess this guy would probably be in light too. So let's go back and do him. So we'll go brush stroke, brush stroke, brush stroke. You can see I'm using the same, you can see it's sort of blending into the pink, which I like because my pink is wet beneath it. I'm using the same brush stroke that we've been practicing and that we used to fill in our starfish. And then there'd probably be a little bit of light here. He'd be a little bit in the light too, brush stroke, brush stroke. Again, always pulling down. And usually, if you guys, I don't know how many of you have been looking at starfish recently, but I used to have one in my fish tank, so I have a really good idea of what they look like. They sort of have these peaks that come up on the top of their body. So they have these peaks that come up all down their legs. Then they have peaks in the middle that sort of come up into points. So of course, those would be in the light too. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a bunch of these strokes to the middle because that would sort of be risen up off of our starfish's body. And that would be in light as well. So we want to make sure that we've got some highlights on that area. You can see I'm not putting super, lots of thought into this. I'm just sort of doing it just sort of where I feel it, where my hand wants to go. I've practiced my strokes, so I've kind of got it in muscle memory. So you can just sort of, that's where they should be. We've got white strokes all on the top right, white strokes on the right side of this one, white strokes on the top of this one, and then we just did a bunch in the middle. I just did them really randomly, just a nice group of white in the middle. And that's about what your starfish should look like right now. Okay? So hopefully you guys are keeping up. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm not gonna put my brush in water. I'm just gonna wipe it off on a paper towel again. Just try to wipe off as much paint as I can. And don't forget, the reason that we're not putting it in water is because I am using floating medium, and I don't want to rinse all of that great floating medium out of my brush. I want to keep it in there for the whole painting. So I'm just wiping it off on a paper towel, and I'm going to pick up some more floating medium, make sure my brush is really conditioned. And then we're going to start adding some of the shadows to our starfish. So for this starfish, since he got a light pink color for his body, I picked a darker pink, sort of corally color for the shadows. So we're going to do the same thing we've been doing. I've got my 1/2-inch flat, I conditioned my brush, and I'm going to pick up some of this crushed coral. So this is what we used originally to paint the shape of our starfish. So if you don't have any more of that on your palette, or if yours is dried out on your palette, I would go ahead and put some more fresh crushed coral, which is just sort of the darker of the pinks we've got here tonight. And if you don't have crushed coral at home, you can mix this by mixing orange, red, and white. Or you can do red, yellow, and white. And that you should be able to use those 3 colors in different combinations to get something close to this. Again, so I've got my floating medium on my 1/2-inch brush, and I'm going to pick up some crushed coral just how we've been doing. And again, if yours is drying out, you want to make sure you've got some fresh crushed coral on your brush. Okay, so now we're going to go through, and wherever our highlights are, on the opposite of that is where our shadows are going to be. So the light is coming from this way. That's where the sun is coming into our painting. And so the darkness is going to be all up this way. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So I've got, let's start here. I've got my light over here. So that means this side is going to be dark. So we're doing the same thing. We're going to go down the edge of this, just pull down, pull down, pull down. Same exact stroke we've been doing. And you can see I'm just kind of going right up to the edge. I'm not overlapping because I'm going to try to keep my lines sort of clean for this one. And to be think too, so our light is coming up that way. So all of this would be in shadow too. Oh, see how wet my paint is? That's awesome. I just dragged my finger through it. All of this would be in shadow. So we're going to do these lines all down this way too. So stroke, 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 stroke. Try and keep them as consistent as we can. Of course, it's never going to be perfect, and that's okay. Stroke, stroke, stroke. So all down that side. We also would probably have some shadow on this side. So if the light's coming that way, this side's not going to be in the light. He's going to be in shadow too. So we're going to add some strokes there. Stroke, stroke, stroke. And then most likely we would have a shadow here too, because that's right beneath where the light is hitting. It's sort of on the underside of the starfish. So we're going to do strokes up that way too. Again, I'm not putting too much thought into this. You can see how fast I'm going. I'm going fast for a reason, because you want it to be really loose and almost random. So stroke, 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 stroke on the other underside. So you can see it's looking sort of blocky now. We've got sort of big chunks of color laid out, and that's okay. We are going to blend all of these together. So I still have my 1/2-inch flat brush. We're still using the same brush, and I still am using crushed coral. And like I said a couple minutes ago, if you look at a starfish, they usually have, or certain kinds of starfish anyway, have sort of like peaks, like sort of like bumps on top of them. And so we're going to paint those in. So we're going to paint sort of dots in the middle over the white to sort of mirror the legs of a starfish. And that's a little confusing, so let me show you what I mean. We're going to paint one here that mirrors the top. Here, that sort of mirrors the right. Here, that sort of mirrors the left. One down here, that goes to the bottom left. And then one down here, that goes to the bottom right. Does that make sense? So we've got our 5 peaks in the center of our starfish, and then that match sort of the 5 legs that we have on our starfish. Super simple. Just sort of these 5 brush strokes in sort of a star shape, essentially. And now we're going to continue these lines down the length of each of these, what are we calling them? Legs, arms, I don't know.
Are the top 2 arms and the bottom 2 are legs? I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, in cartoons, and then the peak is the head.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll go with that. Continue these lines sort of in a stripe down the center of each. So just like this. Going down the center. We're going to continue this one going down the center. We're going to continue this one going down the center.
Susan, you tell your husband you want to see him paint. Someone just said their husband's making fun of them.
Oh no, that's not nice at all.
No, but then he's got to paint and show you, show everybody his painting.
Exactly, he's got to put his money where his mouth is. See if he can do it. I'm sure it looks great.
If you're having fun, it looks great. That's how I feel.
I truly, truly, truly believe that. My older sister loves to paint, and she follows along with all of our classes, and she paints along with all of our paint nights. And she is not a natural born painter, but she loves it more than anyone I know. She thinks her paintings are the most beautiful thing in the world, regardless of what anyone else thinks. So I think that's amazing. She has so much fun doing it.
Gosh, and Carolyn is having a competition. They're all going to text their paintings after and vote.
Oh, I love that. I was just told to tell the story. We did this painting last year at a little party here at Plaid, and my fiance came and painted with us, and his kind of looked like a squished starfish, like someone had stepped on it. It sort of resembled
bubble gum.
Skates a little bit, like squished gum or something. And we have it hanging in our content studio to this day because we think it is so unique, and we love his painting more than anybody else's. We think it looks awesome. I think he might be watching tonight, so shout out to him.
Oh my God, we forgot about it until today. We were talking about it, and we died laughing.
But he had so much fun, and that's all that matters. Oh,
it was like someone stepped on a starfish.
Justin and Jesse, I just commented. He's angry that I called him out, but it's fine. Okay, guys. Okay, so hopefully you've caught up. We've got our sort of darker coral lines on here, or I should say brush strokes. And so we did the center ones. They're kind of going down the center of each of the legs. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean my brush off. Again, I'm using floating medium, so I'm not going to put it in any water. I'm just going to wipe it. I'm just going to pinch it between a paper towel and get as much paint out as I can. And I just had someone say, it seems like I make a little paint go a long way. And that is because I'm using the floating medium. So usually when I'm painting with acrylic paints, it just dries so quickly. I'd be grabbing more paint as I go so often, because that's just the nature of acrylic paints. They dry in the air so fast. But since I'm using this floating medium, it's extending the dry time, or it's extending what they call the open time of the paint. So the open time is the amount of time that it's open to paint with, essentially. So it's the amount of time that's wet. So that's why I'll be using the floating medium, and that's why it sort of extends my paint and allows it to go so much longer on my brush. So that's just a little something there. So we want to keep moving while our paint is still wet. I really hope you guys are keeping up, but we can't slow down too much because otherwise you won't get the effect that we want. So again, I just wipe the paint off of my brush, and I'm going to pick up some more floating medium, and I'm going to condition my brush just the exact same way that we've been doing it. And we're going to go back and we're going to pick up more conch shell. This is the original light pink color that we used to base coat our starfish. And we're going to go through and we're going to blend these colors together. And we're going to do that using the exact same stroke that we've been using this entire time to paint the starfish. So here, I'll show you. We're going to put very little pressure on our brush. We're going to lightly go through, and we're going to sort of go around each of these white and dark coral strokes that we made, and it's going to sort of soften them and blend them together. Can you kind of see how that's happening? And you see how I'm picking up this wet paint? That's what we like. That's what's going to give us this beautiful blended quality. So again, I've got floating medium on my brush, and I've got conch shell, the lighter pink, and we are going through lightly around all of these little brush marks that we made on top of the conch shell, and we are blending them. I'm hardly putting any pressure on my brush. You can see I'm just holding it at the very end of my brush, and I'm going around each of these shapes that we painted in, and we're going to blend these.
Somebody has a question. Is the floating medium the same as the acrylic flow medium?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure. It might be. If the flow medium, read the bottle, if that's meant to extend your paint and to keep it wet longer, then yes, then you can absolutely use that. I have a feeling it is. So again, we're just very gently going. You can see I'm not going directly over any of the shapes because I don't want to cover them up completely. I don't want to cover up these strokes that I made. I'm just sort of going between them. You see that? To sort of get that blended look. And I like that I'm picking up color as I go. That's why we want to keep the paint wet, so it all blends together beautifully on the canvas just by itself without having to do any mixing on our palette.
Yep, and you're still using a 1/2-inch brush.
Still using the 1/2-inch brush. We are going to hang on to this brush until the painting is finished. We are not going to use any other brushes for the rest of this painting. And again, I'm using floating medium, so I have not put it in water. But again, if you're trying to substitute floating medium with water tonight, then of course you want to make sure your brush stays super wet the whole time. And we're just going around these brush strokes that we've made. We're using a generous amount of floating medium. And you can see that's why we wanted all this paint to stay wet. Even through all of our stories and laughing, our paint has stayed wet, and that's why we're able to blend together so well right now as we're sort of softening all of these brush strokes that we just made. You can see it's sort of keeping that shape, the shapes that we've made, but it's just softer. It's not quite so so rigid and quite so graphic looking. We're just softening these shapes, these brush strokes we made, going around all the edges. You can see I'm going super quick, and there's a reason I'm doing that. I don't want to spend too much time on it because you could spend hours trying to perfect this part, but it's never going to be perfect because it's supposed to be really painterly and almost a little bit abstract. It's just supposed to be really soft and impressionistic. That's what we're looking for this painting. Really loose. It's hard for people to paint. People who are really used to painting very realistic and want things to be perfect, it is very hard for them to paint this way. I should know because that's sort of how I tend to lean, but it's really fun when you sort of get the hang of it and you can let yourself get a little bit looser. It's all the more fun.
Yeah, somebody asked if they should be painting over the dark strokes, so that's a great explanation. It's almost like impressionistic, like very abstract. You've got to be able to cover and be very loose with your brush strokes.
Yeah, you can see like I picked up a lot of the dark in some of the areas. I went right over like the edges of a lot of my dark strokes. If your dark strokes are very wet, you can probably go straight over it and you'll still see them coming through. I picked up a lot of the darker paint, and that's what I like. I like that it's very like blended looking. Okay, cool. So hopefully you guys, I'll just give you a second to sort of catch up on that step. Again, don't spend too much time on it because we don't want it to be perfect. We want it to be very loose looking. That's sort of the beauty of this painting. I'm just gonna wipe my brush off on a paper towel while I'm waiting.
Alyssa, you can show, I don't know if I can find you fast enough here, but I think it's totally fine if it looks blended. Let me see.
Yeah, we want it to be blended.
Yeah, let's see. So many pages to scroll through. You guys, it is so fun to see everybody.
You know, I love it. I love when everyone has their cameras turned on. I understand when you don't because I don't know if I'd want to have my camera turned on either, but I love when you guys do. Okay, so hopefully everyone's sort of catching up for this part. So your painting should look something like this, a little bit like what I've got here. And again, we are still using our 1/2-inch flat brush, which is the smaller of our flat brushes, I should say. And I just wiped off the excess paint. I did not put in water. I just wiped it off with a paper towel. So now I'm gonna go and I'm gonna pick up some more floating medium. And we're gonna go back, and I covered up like a lot of my darker pink spots. So we're just gonna bring those out a little bit more because I really want those to pop. I really want to be able to see the details on that starfish. So I'm gonna pick up some of my crushed coral. Sorry, I almost forgot the name. But my crushed coral, which is my darker pink color. And we're just gonna go and we're gonna do just like a little bit of bringing out in these peaks here. So I'm just gonna sort of bring those back to the surface. For any that I made maybe have covered up a little too much, I just want to make sure that we can see those really well because that's like just really beautiful detail for this starfish that I think makes it look a little more realistic. So again, you can see I'm like hardly putting any down. I'm just sort of like tapping on there to make them a little bit darker in case I covered any up too much. See that there? I'm just sort of bringing them back to the forefront of the painting. Sort of blended them to the background, and we want to be able to see those. Can you see how I did that there? So again, I'm going to wipe my brush off again, just wiping it on a paper towel. So now for the finishing touches of our starfish part, before we move on to the background, we are going to put a little bit, again, didn't clean my brush, we're gonna put a little bit of Daybreak, which is our yellow color, onto our palette. And this is just like a really soft yellow color. I don't know if I'd necessarily say it's pastel, but it's not a bright yellow. I'm just gonna put about like a dime size amount. We hardly need any of this. And if you've got yellow at home, you don't have the soft yellow, you can just take whatever bright yellow you have and add a little bit of white to it, and that'll soften it up just so it's a little bit less intense. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of floating medium on my brush again. I'm gonna make sure my brush is nice and conditioned, just how we've been doing. I'm gonna pick up some Daybreak, hardly any. You can see here, hopefully, I hardly have any paint on my brush. Can you see that? Just a little bit on the very tip. And we are going to add some extra highlights where the sun would be hitting it and the sun would sort of be reflecting off of the starfish, just to give it a little more detail. So just on like the brightest parts of our painting, we are gonna go in and we're going to add the Daybreak. So we're gonna go here, and I'm not gonna do this stroke just like we've been doing. I'm not gonna pull down. I'm just gonna touch my brush to the painting. So you can see here, I'm gonna go up here and I'm just gonna touch, 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 touch. It's just sort of adding like a little hint of this yellow color just to make some of these areas pop where we feel like the sun would be especially brightening certain parts of the starfish. So I'm gonna do it on these peaks here. Remember we said these would be like peaks on the starfish. That's what these dots are meant to be. So here, here, here. And you can see how soft the yellow is. Hardly putting any on there. And I'm gonna do a few down here because I think that light would be hitting there too. So again, just really simple, just add some more color and to make it look like the sun is really just beating down on the starfish. So now I'm gonna wipe my brush off again, just in a dry paper towel. Just really simple. We just touched our brush with yellow on it, just to the really bright parts that we wanted to just really make pop. So now that you guys kind of feel like experts because you've done this sort of really impressionistic style painting on your starfish, we're gonna go back and we're gonna do the same exact thing for the background. So we are going to use our blue colors to do the same sort of thing, the same sort of technique that we just did. So hopefully it'll be a little easier for this time because you sort of have the hang of it and you understand sort of the concept of how we're gonna be layering these colors. So the first color we're gonna do, just like remember how we painted the conch shell and then we put more conch shell on top of it, we're going to put more of our silver marlin onto our background. So I'm gonna grab some more of my silver marlin. Actually, no, I have a bunch on my palette here. I forgot. So I have my silver marlin here on my palette. If you need more, go ahead and add more. And I'm going to put a good, generous amount of floating medium on my brush. And you wanna make sure you got most of the pink out for this part. You have a little bit left over, not a big deal. We just wanna make sure we have the most of it out. And I'm gonna pick up my silver marlin. I'm gonna load it onto my brush, and we're gonna do the same thing. Just how we did for that first step after we base coated, I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna put these strokes, just like we've been doing, of silver marlin all over the background. It's just sort of really relaxing, just dabbing your brush on the surface of the canvas like this. Make sure you're using a generous amount of floating medium because of course you want this layer to stay especially wet so we can blend the other beautiful blue colors into it. I'm going to put some more floating medium on my palette because I'm running out. To be nice and wet. Again, we're just going right up to the starfish. You can go over the lines if that's what you've chosen to do, but I'm going to try to keep my lines sort of clean. Just sort of covering it as much as we can with our silver marlin. You can see I kind of went up there, and I told you guys not to do that, but it's just so I can get close to the edge there. I decided to pull up in a really similar motion, just because I felt like if I pulled down there, I might end up going over that line. In case you were wondering why I did that. I'm gonna add some more Silver Marlin to my palette. And don't forget to add lots of floating medium as you go. Use a generous amount. We are just doing the same thing. We're adding strokes of Silver Marlin, to our background to get a nice wet layer of paint down so we can blend all of our beautiful colors into that paint.
I keep running into the plant, Jesse. I don't know if everybody's I literally ran into it like 3 times.
Kira, we're gonna have to move that plant for.
I know.
We put the plant there so those gray doors wouldn't look so sad, but I don't know if they're doing their job. Okay, so again, we're just using our 1/2 inch brush, and we've covered the background. You can see again how wet that is. You can see the starfish is beginning to dry, so you can see sort of the difference. The background is so shiny and wet, and the starfish is sort of matte at this point. So I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to wipe off the excess paint. Again, I'm not putting it in water because I'm using the floating medium. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our highlights, just like we did for the starfish, using the Wicker white, which is just our white color. So I picked up some floating medium, and I'm going to load up my brush just how we've been doing, still using the 1/2 inch flat brush. And we're going to decide, remember when we talked about earlier that our light is coming in from the top right. So we're going to have all of our white coming in from that side too, because the white for this part is basically going to be the light. We're going to paint that light coming in. So here I'll show you how we're going to do that. We're going to dab some white up in the top right corner. So here, dab, 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 dab. Coming in there, dab, dab, dab. And I'm not going quite down to the starfish. I just want to have that light coming in off of the edge of the canvas. Dab, dab, dab. You guys see what I did there? Just added some white. No really rhyme or reason. Just wanted to get that white in there so we could blend it in with the rest of the blues.
Yes, and everybody is asking, are there more classes, or they want to check out some more classes that you've taught, Jesse? So all the previous classes that we've taught with Michaels are on michaels.com, so you can check those out. We also have a ton of Jesse's classes and a bunch of other resources if you want to check out our Facebook group, which is Let's Paint with Plaid. And Michaels is going to get up next week's class. I'm sure they will have it up right away, but we are typically here on Monday nights painting. I think we were doing a floral next. I can't remember exactly, but that'll be up, so you'll want to check back on michaels.com to sign up. But typically the past month or so, we have been here at 8 p.m. Eastern, and Jesse has been teaching us how to paint.
I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. I'm so happy to be back each week. That's awesome. Okay. So we are still using our 1/2 inch flat brush, and we have a generous amount of the floating medium on it, and we are adding in white to the background. So we just added some white strokes up there, and we're going to add some white coming in on this side too, because we're sort of picturing the light coming in this way. So I'm just going to add some white strokes coming in there. And maybe even a little down here, sort of coming in from the right side. Okay, so I'm gonna wipe off the excess paint, again, just on a dry napkin. Just gonna pinch it between my fingers, try to get that off. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to grab some of our French blue, which is a sort of brighter blue, and we're going to put about a nickel-sized amount of that on our palette. I'm running out of room because I did all these brush strokes on my palette. That's okay. So I'm glad to have this big palette here tonight. So again, I'm going to prime my brush. I'm going to condition it with my floating medium. Make sure it's all in the bristles, nice and conditioned. And we're going to pick up some of our French blue, and this is going to be act as sort of a mid-tone of blue to give us lots of variety in our background. So what we're going to do with this is sort of anywhere where there's gray, we're going to try to cover it up with a little bit of this mid-tone. So here, I'll show you how we're going to do that. They're going to be kind of sparse. So we're going to do stroke, stroke, stroke. We're going to sort of fill in the areas. We're going to go just inside the white area. And that's going to start blending already because that paint is still super wet. Just inside these areas. And this is sort of a mid-tone. We're going to go back and we're going to add an even darker blue for the shadows. This is just sort of to give it some more beautiful variety. Just to give our, I guess this is sort of an ocean background to give it some more dimension. You can see they're kind of far apart, sort of sparse on my canvas. Just want to add these in again as just sort of a mid-tone blue between the white and the silver marlin that we've got on here. So can you see how quickly I did that? I did not spend too much time thinking about placement. I just wanted to get some color in there to sort of dab more color into our painting. And again, we're going to do just like we did the starfish. We're going to go and we're going to blend all of these again. So we just want to get that color placed on there nice and wet. So you can spend a minute doing that. And I'm just wiping my brush off on a dry paper towel where you guys are dabbing in your French blue.
Tons of great comments, Jessie. You are a great teacher, so everybody is loving them. And some people say this is their first painting class, but not their last. So
awesome! Oh,
you have converted the audience into painters.
Now a painter. I love that. If you love to paint and you paint all the time, then you're a painter. That's it.
Yeah.
You're a pro. You don't need to have tons of experience. That makes you a painter. I love that. Very cool. Thanks for joining us, guys. Okay, cool. So hopefully you guys have sort of caught up with that. We're going to go ahead and we're going to grab our navy blue, which of course is our darkest blue. Any dark blue you have will work totally fine. If you don't have a navy blue, you can take sort of like a really bright blue and put like a little like tiny dab of black in it, and that'll really darken it and give you a nice deep blue. I always say this in our paintings, if you've got red, yellow, blue, and white at home, and maybe black, you can paint any painting. You can mix any of these colors. So again, I've got my clean brush that I've just wiped on the paper towel, my 1/2 inch flat, and I'm going to prime it. I'm just going to make sure that it's nice and conditioned with my floating medium. You can see I sort of have some paint in there that the floating medium is bringing out, and that's okay because we're still sticking in the blue sort of color, so it won't mix with anything that won't look pretty with. So I'm going to pick up the navy blue. This is a really beautiful, rich blue color. And we're going to put in the shadows under our starfish. So we're going to try to picture again, just like we talked about, we have our light source coming in this way. So what is going to be in shadow in our painting? So down here will definitely be in shadow. So we're going to go right up to the edge of our starfish, and we are going to paint in navy blue. So in the same motion we've been doing, we're going to go right up close to the edge of the starfish. We're going to go all the way down that. And we're even going to bring it out a little and make it like a little bit thicker, a little area, not just a line. Because it's going to be pretty in shadow down there. You can see I'm already blending in with my silver marlin and my French blue, and that's great. Again, make sure I've got lots of floating medium on my brush. Definitely down here would be in shadow, right? Because if our light is coming in this way, down here is all going to be in shadow. So we go right up to the edge of our starfish there. and put in some of this dark, beautiful navy blue. Again, we're already mixing it with those blues, which we love. And then we probably have a good amount of shadow right there, right? So it's sort of opposite of where we put in these dark corals. We have a good bit of shadow there because, again, our light's coming in this way, so that's going to be in shadow. So I keep going a little crazy with my brush strokes. Need to slow down maybe.
Sylvia had a comment. She said, great to see the difference in all the paintings. That's absolutely right. Like every time you paint, it's going to turn out different, right?
Yeah.
So it depends on your mood and just your technique that day. So
paintings, and you can see how different they turn out each time. So
I think that's
practice, and it's never the same.
But I think that's really great for everybody to see, right? Like yours isn't going to be just like yours or the next person's. I love that.
Nope. Yeah, mine are never the same, no matter how hard I try. Andy Jones, who is our content editor for our Let's Paint program here at Plaid, always says that he hates repainting paintings because whatever he likes it the first time, he can never recreate it just how he liked it. So each painting is totally unique. You know, you have one beautiful area of your painting, you may never be able to recreate that, and that's okay. You just keep painting more and more and creating more different beautiful areas. Okay, so we're gonna put a little bit of a shadow under this arm. That's what we're calling it.
Arm. The bottom two are legs.
Talking about. So we're just gonna do a little shadow there because that would be in shadow probably. And yeah, that's probably where all the shadows would be on this guy. So we're gonna start blending those together just like we did for the body of our starfish. And again, I'm just gonna wipe off the excess paint, just pinch it between a dry paper towel. And now we are going to go back, and some of you might be able to guess what we're going to do next if you remember sort of the process for our starfish. We are going to pick up our base color and start blending these together and softening them. So we're going to pick up our floating medium, and we're going to pick up our silver marlin, which is this beautiful gray blue color that we've been using since the beginning. And we're going to do the same thing we did with the starfish. We're going to go through, we're going to have a good bit of the silver marlin on our brush, and we're just going to gently blend all of these. Someone said, yay, blending time. I like this.
I love that.
We're going to gently blend all of these random strokes together to get a really beautiful background. So here, we'll just start going. I'm barely touching the canvas with my brush. I'm just softly blending. You can see I'm sort of holding the end of my brush. And you can see, look, all of these colors already blending together.
You can see that's so great, Jessie. The blending, it looks really good.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah, it's like magic. So you have all these random brush strokes, and then you just go in. If you place the color sort of strategically like we did, so you place the darkers where colors would be shadows and the lighter colors would be highlights, when you go in and blend them softly, it sort of makes sense. It's nice and soft and loose, but it still makes sense as a background. It's not just, you know, all random blurs like sometimes they are, which sometimes I like painting my paintings that way too. But for this one, I wanted to make it a little more realistic almost. We're just blending all these blues in together. You can see I'm not cleaning my brush off in between. I love all of the different colors that I'm picking up and blending in with the rest. I'm not cleaning my brush off or wiping it off in between. I love how they're blending together. Just very softly hitting the canvas.
So Jessie is going back in with the silver marlin to blend.
Yep. Silver marlin, we're still on this 1/2 inch brush, and I have a good bit of the FolkArt floating medium on my brush. We're just softly touching all of that paint that is still so wet on our canvas because we put so much floating medium. It's still so wet, and so it's just blending so well with the paint that we're adding on top of it and making beautiful new blue colors. This is a great way to paint any painting. You can use this technique of just sort of blocking out colors and adding in the darks and adding in the lights and then blending them together to paint really anything.
So Linda, you had a question. I think someone asked this before, if the pouring medium would work, and we would not recommend using the pouring medium. You would use floating medium or water.
Or if you've got some sort of like paint extender at home, something like that.
Yeah. We will be using pouring medium on Wednesday, though, when we do galaxy pours, if you guys want to tune in for that.
Totally. My niece Annika is going to be 6 years old next month, and she has been talking about the galaxy pour all week.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. She's definitely going to be tuned in. She's hyped for some pouring. And you guys, once you finish blending your background, you want to make sure that you sign your painting. And that was the final step of our summer starfish. So hopefully you guys had fun. Hopefully you guys painted along. And if not, hopefully you were feeling inspired. So you can go back and watch this video on michaels.com and paint along later, where you can pause it and fast forward and rewind as you need it. I really thank you guys so much for joining. And we hope to see you next Monday, right, Kira?
Yes, yes. They will get, I have some messages here. I want to make sure that I don't need to tell you guys anything. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so yes, we will be back next Monday. Michaels is going to, the team there will get the class posted. So you want to make sure to keep checking on michaels.com for that. But Jessie will be back teaching. And if you want to watch any of the past classes along with this one, it'll be on michaels.com. So I know the past ones are on there, and they will go ahead and get this one up for you, so you can paint the starfish. Thank you everybody for joining us, and we are going to pick a winner. Can we do 2 winners tonight? I hate picking you guys. I absolutely hate. I'm going to do it at random. Oh, it's so awful. Okay, I'm going to use my phone and pick. Okay, so we've got Elena Paul.
Woohoo!
Yeah, so Elena. And we got to pick one more. Okay, so what you want to do, Elena, you want to go to our Plaid Crafts Facebook page, and you want to private message us and let us know that you won, and we will get a hold of you and get out your product.
Yep.
Okay, and then next we've got Cindy Navarro.
Woohoo! Congratulations.
So Cindy, you won. So Elena and Cindy, go to our Plaid Facebook page and direct message us and let us know that you won, and we will get a hold of you and make sure you get your product. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We had so much fun, and we will see you guys again next time. Thank you, Michaels, for having us.
Yes, as always, we have so much fun, guys. Thanks again.
Yeah, have a good rest of the week. Bye, guys.
Bye.